From what we know is the Vic government's downloaded data 1,800 times, but in that time no new contacts actually established that weren't established already. Is it working as it's supposed to?
Absolutely, Tom, and New South Wales shows that. New South Wales has shown if you integrate the app as just part of the contact tracing apparatus, they've had 80 close contacts, 17 that weren't picked up through normal manual track and tracing, and of course one of those led to a cluster of 544 people that would have potentially been exposed. So it works in concert with normal tracing and tracking methods.
But 17 out of the total of New South Wales, it still seems low. I mean, that must be lower than you were anticipating and when we heard so much about the app early on.
Remember the 17 or the 80 close contacts and 17 that manual track and tracing hadn't shown. That's because when tracers sit down, so if I sat down with you, Tom, and said, right, who have you been 1.5 metres from for 15 minutes? And you go through all the different people, and then, of course, with the COVIDSafe app, it would pick up the same people. So you'd understand why the numbers are reasonably low because you're working with people to say who have been close with for 15 minutes.
But I mean, even the 80 is low. Is there an issue at all with storage? If you tweak the settings of this and say it goes off if you're within 1.5 metres of someone for a minute rather than 15, there's a lot more data. Is there a capability issue at all?
There's no question that at 15 minutes, which is the health advice, now if the health advice changed to say we want to collect everything within 10 minutes, that setting can be changed.
There's no data issue there at all?
No, there's no data issue. Remember, the actual app picks up all the close contacts, even from literally the first couple of seconds, but in the back end it parses that and only shows up to the tracers contacts within 15
minutes. But it all needs to be stored at some stage. So just to clarify, there's no issue with that. If that were the setting, you could change that. With the states, obviously, you could change all that.
If the health advice, and health is the business owner, if they want to change 15 minutes to 10 minutes, that can be done relatively easily.
What's the privacy issue with catching data? Brett Sutton spoke about it at news conference.
We don't believe there is. Remember, the app was launched at the end of April. When it was launched, the full privacy impact statement was done and published for everyone to see. The code was published on GitHub for everyone to see. So if Victoria had decided 12 weeks later that there was a privacy issue, maybe I'll leave that to Brett Sutton to try and explain that missing 12 weeks when the Commonwealth had published its privacy impact statement, but apparently Victoria hadn't read it.
Have you spoken to... Has Victoria asked you about this, approached you about this?
It's the first I've heard about this potential issue that Victoria raised in their press conference 10 minutes ago. First I heard was 10 minutes ago.
Will you pick up the phone?
To speak to them? My agency will, absolutely.
Because, I mean, whatever, you know, even if you think they should have picked it up, you'd want to know what their issue was, so it doesn't come up again, what's happening.
I would have thought after we'd published the privacy impact statement and launched the app, that in the next 12 weeks from then to the 1st of July, if they had a problem, they would have raised it. Now, there's no indication, well, I know they didn't raise it with me, I'll certainly check with my department and agency.
Whether they raised it there, OK.
But this came as a very large surprise on your show a few minutes ago.
All right, just want to ask you quickly about the NDIS. So a big change was the determination of someone's need, bringing in this change in August that has this one-off session now to establish in an independent sense. Why was that needed compared to the old system of going through people that were treating someone already and had a good knowledge of someone in the NDIS?
So we announced in August that we'll be bringing forward independent assessments starting next year. There's been 2 trials done and we're extending the second trial as we speak. The Productivity Commission, in their original recommendation, recommended this, as did the Tune Review. And for one very good reason, it brings in equity. See, at present, if you're well off, you can go and afford to pay $10,000 for therapy reports and go to your planning meeting with the NDIA and put forward your case. But if you're not well off, you can't do that.
So was it being rorted then? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying from an equity point of view, the plan you get shouldn't depend upon whether you're poor or otherwise.
But that would indicate that someone who is wealthy is able to get what reports that suggest they have a bigger problem than they really have and they get more money.
I want everyone to get the same access. I don't want some people to turn up with a whole host of reports and others with nothing.
Do you have concerns it's being rorted?
I've got concerns when I look at the Productivity Commission estimates that in the ACT, for example, the number of access decisions is 170% of the Productivity Commission estimates. Now, that would seem a long way off compared to other states where they're spot on. Now, I'm not suggesting in the ACT with well-adjusted public servants who are well paid and understand how systems work. I'm simply making the point from an equity line. I want every Australian to be able to have an independent assessment at the Commonwealth's cost, so access is equitable.
The implication, though, is that if you look at those figures in the ACT, some people are getting things they don't deserve under the system.
Well, perhaps some people just know how systems work better than others.
And then they get something they don't deserve.
Well, I'm not saying that at all. I just want everyone to have the same access.
All right.